Okay, ladies, gentlemen, so our first participant, last night he was introduced in a way that I refuse to introduce him again. He's not as good looking as you, Grant, so I'm not ever going to make that analogy again. But he has gone from Randfontein to Vancouver, the one and only. So privileged to have you with us, Duncan Wanblad, CEO of Anglo, soon to be Anglo Tech. Anyway, it's always telling when the person comes and sit. If they sit close to me, it's going to be a good conversation. I have had people, Mpumi would go and sit over there. Yeah. And I go like my deodorant fine.
I'm giving myself options to move up as
the conversation
goes on.
Duncan, we won't tell the audience, but we've got a deal that every second year you really go out of your way to be in person. So I want to acknowledge and thank that. Partly because, in my mind, South Africa is not really big in Anglo's life anymore. Is that true? Why don't we pick up the conversation there? How relevant are we still in your life as Anglo-American?
Yeah. So I had an inkling, Bernard, that might be one of your first questions. So, not that you're predictable or anything, but it is really. I mean, it's not from a revenue point of view as big as it was before, but it's certainly one of the biggest earners in the group today, and it remains strategically important to the company, right? I mean, Anglo's had to go through massive transformations in its 108 years of existence, and certainly the last 3 has been, one of the most meaningful transformations that it's had to go through. And during that period of time, there was never a sentiment or a view that South Africa wasn't an important part of the company, right? I mean, clearly it's the basis of our history, but it has also been an incredibly good mining jurisdiction for us, right? And part of that is because, I guess we had very good assets here, very good resources here, but we had a work method here that worked for us. When I have a look at the other jurisdictions where Anglo operates in, they are not materially easier or better than South Africa, right? I mean, I think the jurisdiction is what you make out of it, unless it is completely and utterly structurally broken. And South Africa certainly has its challenges, but I would never put it in the category of completely and utterly structurally broken. I mean, we can work here, and it is exciting. I mean, you might want to get into this a little bit later, but I mean, it is now probably one of the most underexplored minerals jurisdictions in the world, right? Yeah. There's been a lot of reasons for that, and I guess we know what they are, but I think that in and of itself, and given the change in mood, the change in sentiment, the fact that critical minerals is becoming a more and more important thing in a geopolitically fractured world, this might be another opportunity in South Africa's life. So I think the optimism that you felt in the room last night, the optimism that we saw on your poll, is reasonably well warranted. So, and I'm hoping that Anglo-American will continue in South Africa for another 108 years. This restructuring had nothing to do with South Africa per se.
I was hoping if Gwede showed up last night, I deliberately sat him at your table. I wanted to see the vibes there. But my sense is that the South African government's actually proud of this next move of yours. Yeah. I mean, they're not making demands. You're not paying an exit bribe like Anglo Gold had to pay that I'm aware of.
No, me either.
So it looks like, it's almost like we are proud of you, go conquer the world. Is that a over-romanticized view, or is that how? Where's the South African government on Anglo's next move?
Look, I think the government has always seen, for good and bad, the role that Anglo has played in society and in the country, and I think it recognizes what it is that we do, and the I think probably more the way that we do things. I mean, it is probably testament to the fact that half the companies up on the board behind here are ex-Anglo companies, right? I mean, there's an issue that these companies get spawned from Anglo, and they thrive and
do
survive.
very well.
And they
They
do
do
really
very
well.
well
They
after
do very
Anglo.
well, right? I mean, that's good. I mean, I think that is extremely good.
Bumi, wait your turn. It's not your turn yet.
Yeah, that is testimony to them, and I think certainly the government recognises that, and I think there is, there's a lot of goodwill and support of Anglo by the government, and we feel that, right? I mean, there's a lot of tough things that we have to talk about from time to time, and we do that, but we do that behind closed doors, and we do it in the right way.
So 100 and something years, you said significant transformation regularly, otherwise Anglo wouldn't exist. But perhaps it's the fact that it just happened. I would argue that this is one of the bigger ones, this current transformation of Anglo. I mean, if we go back, I don't know what was in place before the infamous BHP bulletin bid, but since then, I mean, this is a company shedding, reinventing, just perhaps unpack strategically when all your ex-colleagues retire, billionaires, like July last night, and I mean, it's not going too bad with Chris's family trust. I mean, Chris left too early, damn it. Talk us through this. I can be critical and say, yeah, okay, you caved in and you got rid of coal. You listened to BHP Bulletin and you got rid of Volterra. Are you still happy? Did you do the right thing? Are you on the right track?
Yeah, no, look, I do. I passionately believe that we're on the right track and that we did the right thing. I mean, this current transformation that we're in the process of doing at the moment wasn't driven by the BHP bid at all. I mean, it was certainly accelerated by the BHP bid, and in many respects, I think. Oddly, helpfully so, because it was a very complex and complicated transformation to do. But there were a number of problems that we were trying to solve for in that strategy, Bernard. The first one was, the company, for as long as I can remember, and certainly, if you go through the analysis from the time that we listed in the UK in 1999. Has never ever represented the full value of the underlying assets in the market, right? And at certain times the discount was really, really deep. Then we had a number of. I mean, we were probably the most diversified mining company out there. It was a struggle for analysts to get their head across, what that all was and how that all worked. We had two very, very specialist companies embedded within that, the platinum business and the diamond business. And then we also had, two listed entities embedded in all of that. And that created a complication that really was difficult to demonstrate the value of the company. And that has strategic consequences, right? I mean, you get stuck, because if you're thinking about where you take the company from here, right? I mean, you've got to grow the company, bottom line and top line, and you think about how to do that. Of course, we were very fortunate and we were very well endowed with a number of great projects that we could execute. But the other really uncomfortable truth is mining is probably one of the most capital-intensive industries in the world, and it needs a lot of cash to kind of grow. And it was becoming very, very difficult to generate the quantum of cash to grow across all of the verticals that we had in the company. Play back to the first point, which is, you're strategically stuck because your stock is undervalued, so you can't acquire anything for paper because the targets that you're looking to acquire are very dilutive for the shareholders ultimately at the end of the day. So there had to be something that fixed that, right? So I had a weakening balance sheet, really really as a result of a big outturn of those COVID years across the whole of the portfolio. And I had a stock that was going to really struggle to get full valuation. So where was my future? I had to create a new one. And it was as painful as all hell to do that. But I mean, I hope that you can see there was a direction of travel, and there was a clear intent as to what to do and how to do it, no matter how painful it was. But the whole idea here is to get another company on its feet, or this company, keep it on its feet for another 108 years, right?
Yeah, there's such a huge responsibility in a legacy company. Nah? I mean,
Yeah.
So coal happened a little bit before you became CEO, if I remember correctly. With respect, there was fortunate circumstances. There was a bit of luck, and coal flew off. Valterra was a fantastically successful process. I had lots of opinions about the route you chose, and almost every step worked. The surprising exit of your last stake, I mean, all fantastic. Z.B.S, that doesn't sound so simple. I mean, that's the hard one, because nothing is in your favor there.
Well, you know, say when we demerged Thungela, the prices went up. When we demerged Valterra, the prices went up.
Wait, I'm funding my broker.
So I think now everybody should be really big diamond bulls.
The man who makes the bottom. We're going to call you the bottom maker.
Yeah, no, look, Bernard, it's the markets are they're still very challenging for diamonds. Big issues still in China from a demand point of view. The US looks okay actually, but with China and lab growns, it certainly has had an impact over time. However, lots of green shoots there, and I think that definitely it feels like we're not sinking in the market anymore. It feels like the market is bottoming, and as I say, these green shoots of a turnaround coming. So we've got a number of interested parties in Z.B.S, all strategics, which I think is another positive signal. So these are parties that know the industry, that know the assets, that love diamonds. I mean, that's all very positive, right? I mean, it would be a completely different world if we were running a trade sale process for the business and all we had was private equity in it. That's not the case. So I think yes. So tough, really tough, driven by where diamond markets find themselves, but a sense that they are potentially starting to turn, and actually some real strategic interest in the business going forward. So
it's a bit of a theoretical question, but would it have been easier if Z.B.S was still listed? You could have done a Valterra type process. Now you are looking for a Thungela type process.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great hypothetical question, but one that I haven't really had a lot of time to spend thinking about, because I've got to think forward, deal with what I've got today.
No, absolutely, yeah. No, I'm just thinking, and I mean, the efforts of in consolidating it all as 100% subsidiary and then deciding to exit it at a tough time. And then you sit with this little quarry, I think it's called Kumba. That's all you've got left in South Africa, a little quarry with a dilapidated railway line. I mean, so what keeps you in South Africa, apart from the fantastic people of Kumba?
Well, the fantastic people of South Africa, but that little quarry keeps me in South Africa. There's no doubt. I mean, that's a great business.
Yeah.
It certainly didn't have the same sort of compression effect in our assessment on the valuation of the business. It is a very unique type of iron ore in the world today. I'm a really big believer in the fact that the world will ultimately transition to a cleaner type of economy, but I don't think that it's going to be magic, and I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. And the role that Kumba plays in that transition over the next several decades, I think, is a really important one. What they produce there is a differentiated product in the markets today, and with the work that Mpumi is doing on UHDMS, will make it even more differentiated, and therefore I think more sought after. and there's lots of longer life extensions there. So if you sort of play that into what I think is another underpin to the Anglo strategy, is that fundamentally the world needs mining. There is no doubt in my mind that for many, many decades, if not centuries, we are going to need the raw material mined, if it's mined the right way. Secondly, it's got to come from Africa in a very large way, because most of the resources in the world that are very rich in the minerals that the world is looking for are very well mined out. Africa isn't really, you know. Yeah. So part of our strategy here is not only South Africa itself, but actually South Africa as the window, if you like, a mining window into the balance of Africa for what I think is probably, one of the most underexplored, highly valued continents as far as minerals generally are concerned, before we even start talking about what critical minerals are.
If we sat here and we asked the audience to show us who somewhere went through Anglo, it's going to be half of the audience. If we look at the current CEOs, it's going to be most of them somewhere had an Anglo background. That can't be true in the future. So just reflect a little bit. So, being this dominant, you were easy to hate. You're almost the ugly face of capitalism. The politicians played it well. You endowed us with leaders in the industry. In future, that's going to be very, very different. That just can't be true anymore.
Just because of scale and the
opportunities,
the
number of bursaries,
training ground. That would be true if you had a finite view on the current shape of the business in South Africa today. I don't. So 108 years is a really long time. This is a company that has clearly a growth ambition. Clearly likes the region. Clearly likes the country. So, for the reasons that we discussed, the strategic reasons, it was the right thing to demerge Valterra. It is absolutely the right thing to divest of Z.B.S, but that creates other opportunities for us, right? And those opportunities could very well be here. So, I do hope that in 10 years' time, when you and I are sitting here talking about this again, that there are more leaders that are growing in Anglo for South Africa.
Yeah, another Okie there in Randfontein aspiring to run Anglo one day, hopefully. I saw somebody did an analysis that when we were exploring 5% of the world's exploration, the bulk of that was Anglo in its different sort of entities. I'm talking about the 90s, perhaps even up to 2000. So to a large extent, the fall off in exploration, I can blame you. I should thank Anglo for doing the exploration. But since Anglo stopped doing significant exploration, the country now is falling over the cliff. So can we talk about exploration in general? Is there more that established companies like yourselves should be doing? Is there more that we should do to create an enabling environment? In 20 years, we are not going to have the ore bodies to mine unless tomorrow we do things differently. Please go to exploration, and how do we address that, Duncan?
Are you talking global exploration or just exploration?
I'm very selfishly wanting to talk about South Africa and the opportunities here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, look, this is it's a conundrum of a question, right? I'm very cognizant there's an answer here that could get your bullshit button rung very quickly, and then there's a whole lot of uncomfortable truths that we should potentially dig into here. South Africa is underexplored today because it had really unsupportive policy for exploration. right? I mean,
For how long? 30 years or 60 years
yeah,
or 10
no,
years?
certainly, I'm guessing the last sort of 20 odd years or so would be. And, that's a very important part
exactly.
of a mining life cycle. I mean, I think, the big mines today, the data will show you that it takes about 17 years from the time that you find the deposit until the time that you get it permitted and ramped up into full production. So, if I'm right, that's a generation.
Yeah.
That it's a generation of mines that have been foregone. And I mean, part of what the audience suggested is, we absolutely have a bright future. We have a bright future in mining. We can actually be transformative in growing the country and building new mines, etc., etc. But we are behind the curve because what it needs is very strong leadership, and it needs supportive policy in being able to do that. And absent that policy, you will find it really difficult to get the providers of capital in a very capital-intensive industry to put that money at risk. Because not only does it take that long to build a mine, but I mean, if it takes you 5 or 6 years to build a mine and ramp it up, it's another 5 years or so before it pays anything back. So what do you need in that period of time? Well, you need a relatively stable political environment. You need a relatively set of good and transparent fiscal policies. You can't be thinking, oh, maybe this $1 billion that's gone into this mine may actually never pay back at that point in time. And so I think that that's part of the challenge that we've got to face, that I think that we are digging into, that we are working quite hard on, and I think is slowly starting to change. So I am optimistic, right? Because I am a miner. I think if you're a miner, you just have to be optimistic. I think it's really important. But I think I have a very healthy dose of realism around this optimism too. We have challenges here in South Africa. I think we know what they are. I think there's a strong coalition of the willing that's working very, very hard to overcome those challenges. Nothing is telling me that these things are going to be overcome tomorrow, but nothing's telling me that they can't be overcome with this amount of effort. And that includes stuff like the infrastructure, rail logistics, electricity, and certainly, we don't have a cadastral system just yet, but we're talking about one. And
we have been talking for 7 years,
yes,
but we're still talking.
But mining's a 50 to 100-year business,
no,
so
we
will get one.
Okay?
So that's the direction. It feels to me that might be the last hurdle, the last hurdle to open up the investment in exploration again in South Africa. And in fact, as part of the Anglo Tech deal, we've made a commitment to invest another 600 million rand in the Junior Exploration Fund, right? Because we believe in this so much.
I think that deserves applause. That's fantastic. Now, there are many questions, and I'm weaving them into the conversation, so now you don't know if it's my rudeness or the audience's rudeness. But there's a great need from the audience for us to go to tech. So why don't you give us these are the two companies that survived hostile bids. Are you now the two desperate guys who are getting together because I don't know what happened here. Give us the psychology of this transaction. Like BHP Bid and tried, but you didn't want to, and they, whatever, tried and they didn't want. Now you guys are coming together. There's a logic. What is it?
Well, the logic is this transaction makes extraordinary good commercial sense, right? It's very rare where you have an opportunity for two companies to put themselves together. Get scale. Scale is kind of important in this industry, but at the same time, deliver a whole lot more than just the synergies of the combination, which would be SG&A, marketing, and procurement, or something like that. That in and of itself is certainly nothing to be sniffed at. I mean, that's $800 million pre-tax on an annual basis, so that's huge value. But you know, the fact that we've got some real industrial synergies, you know, that could deliver, you know, in this world of very, very capital intense mining, a low intensity volume increment solution with the combination of Quebrada Blanca and Collahuasi. You know, $1.4 billion of EBITDA, you know, that's massive. So, you know, the commercial logic in this is huge. The strategic logic is great because they are, you know, the portfolio is a great portfolio. I mean, it is copper focused, but still diversified, which I like a lot. And then I think there's something that's really important to consider when you're thinking about mergers and acquisitions, right? I mean, they are notoriously very difficult to actually execute on once you've got all the approvals and everything like that, right? Because you have to find a way to integrate the two companies together. And this is why, you know, for many other reasons, this is why we wanted this one to be a merger as opposed to a takeover. But you know, we unusually here have a world where the two companies think quite similarly about mining, how mining should be done. So there's a similar type of DNA within, which will hopefully mean that the integration is a hell of a lot quicker and a lot more successful, so we can get after delivering those synergies, right? So that was the logic, that was the rationale. Those were the elements that made it sensible for us to do. I mean, we had made material progress on our own transformation with Valterra. You know, I think really successfully executed in all fronts. Managed the flow back really well. They'd done a big transformation thing. The timing was almost perfect. I mean, you can never say when it's going to be exactly right, but the timing was perfect. We'd got the re-rating. We were able to get it done. So that was the logic.
And was your re-rating adequate to make the BHP bulletin types saying, okay, we missed this one, it's gone? Or are you more in play? I mean, there's so many bankers, I should ask Colin this question, but I'm sure every banker sits and says, two companies in play. Whilst they're contemplating a merger, they're both in play.
Sure. Hey, Bernard, you know, I mean, it would be a miserable existence if I spent my life worrying about when I was in play and when I wasn't in play and so on. I mean, it's I think I've been in play for the last 3 years.
He's gone through life as you, Grant. And I mean, I'm living a miserable life of wondering if my gorgeous wife is going to stay with me another week. And I mean, so this is the difference between us two.
I can't worry about that. Right? What I have to worry about is, you know, am I doing the right thing with the business that I've got, with the assets, with the people? You know, am I creating the potential for a future that is extraordinary compared to what it is today? And if I can go to bed every night thinking, yep, the answer to that is generally, you know, plus or minus, yes, then I think, you know, I'm doing my job.
And as you say, I mean, if the value sits in the share price, then whoever wants to play have to pay a premium on that. But then, I mean, worst case scenario, this thing falls over and you get to stay in London. You don't have to move to Vancouver. This is taking one for the team. I mean, moving to Vancouver. Yes.
Yeah, look, I mean, he's moving to Vancouver. You know, I wouldn't categorize that as a hardship posting in mining generally, right? You know, but the logic of that, you know, was very clear. I mean, so the majority of the asset bases in the Americas, so South America and the US, projects in Mexico. So, you know, it kind of made sense if you're going to headquarter somewhere. It either had to be in London or Vancouver.
And the Canadians are insisting.
The Canadians would very much like us to be headquartered in...
that is so Anglo-speak. I mean, that is like... Guys, if you've heard no Anglo-speak, that was Anglo-speak. I want to...
Mine is absolutely true.
I want to Somebody made a statement before a question about some announcement. So it's anonymous. I do apologize. Given a tech announcement this morning, I don't know what that was. You can tell us. How would you respond to the criticism that you are merging with a company that is very much on the back foot? So I don't know what the announcement was. How do you feel about your partner being on the back foot? Potential partner, future partner.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the announcement this morning was that they came out with a guidance revision for 3 of the assets. The bottom line is that whilst clearly we weren't going to be privy to the exact detail of that announcement, we did a significant amount of due diligence on the business. So I mean, this wasn't a hostile takeover. We worked quite hard with each other for several months, and nothing that's in that announcement today is outside of our expectations or our view of the value that's in this company and our ability to deliver those synergies. So, I mean, there's not much really more for me to say on that. I mean, so not unexpected from our perspective. Generally in line and where we expected or thought that things were going to go when they had completed their operational review, their strategic review. That was in train at the time that we were busy doing our diligence.
Yeah. There's a need from the audience for us to go to your. We've discussed the beers. We can come back there. I'm just quickly catching up. Your UK potters.
Woodsmith.
Yeah. How's it going? There was a point where it felt like a few years late, a few billion rands overspent, but trust us, it's coming.
Yeah, that was exactly.
What's going to be
exactly
first? What's going to be first? That mine or your hydro? What your truck? I mean, I'm not allowed to ask the truck question. I was told not to ask about the truck.
Craig's the guy you got to ask.
No, he said ask you. Listen, why don't you give me the truck and I will just take it forward.
I tried to give him the truck. So
how's it going?
Woodsmith's going really well, right? There were three things that I needed to happen on Woodsmith, and that's sort of I announced in May of last year. The first, of course, was I really did want to get a significant way through this restructure that we're doing, and the purpose of that was obviously to right-size some of the balance sheet issues that we had in the business. The second thing is. It's a very big project, right? From a capital point of view, and it made an enormous amount of sense to us that we should syndicate that, and so I wanted to get it syndicated. But then there's a little bit of a chicken and an egg scenario, is that it's very difficult to syndicate the project unless you've got a feasibility study, and we're still busy working on the feasibility study. And at the same time, I think if you're going to get a syndicate partner, the syndicate partner is going to want a clear, set of assurances that we are going to move forward on the project. So we set those up as the 3 criteria, and we've been moving, along that track over the last 18 months or so. And going really well. So the feasibility study is doing well. We're still sinking one shaft. We're getting all the data we need to populate a feasibility study. We haven't found any googlies yet in the context of what we had expected in the pre-feas study. So really pleased with that. The marketing works and the market development work here. So this is a product that's got now. Or knocking on the door of 2,000, field trials and even more excitement in the market from key players that are very keen to participate in the development of the product. So that feels like it's going really well. We have a number of potential partners that remain extremely interested and are working with us during this feasibility phase, and we're kind of getting to the point where. You can see a pathway through the balance sheet. So long as we get to a positive returning and hurdling feasibility study, and we can bring over the line one of the potential partners, this project should go ahead.
Over the years, I've asked at this conference on the Platinum Day, what's our country's next platinum project that must absolutely fly? And it was always Mogalakwena underground. The moment these guys are free, they're now going to be able to make a capital allocation decision very different to what the Anglo would have made in London. Just help us understand, because I mean, part of the logic of a holding entity is capital allocation gets taken at the center. Lots of things get factored in. In hindsight, one can argue that Mogalakwena underground should have been up and running already. Or is that now just hindsight? Is the capital allocation that takes place in the center really more efficient than commodity-focused allocation?
Well, I mean, you know, you're running a portfolio of businesses and assets, and generally, you know, each of these have a cycle. You know, either they have a commodity cycle, or they have a particular cycle in their mining plan that sort of needs to be dealt with. And you know, the one thing for sure is, you know, running a company is like running your own personal bank account. At some point in time, you have to allocate the capital to the highest returning projects at the right time, and you can't run out of cash, right? That's really important. So I don't think there's anything odd or unusual or magic around capital allocation from the center. You know, that sort of makes sense. I'm pretty confident that the vast majority, if not all, of the capital allocation decisions that were made from the center were deeply consistent with how the companies would have allocated capital in and of their own right at the time. I'm sure Craig would say that it's probably a little bit less complicated now, but the you know, the rationale and the logic of why capital should be allocated and where it should be capital allocated, we never really had any major kind of fallouts with the underlying business as far as that was concerned, where strategically one wanted to go in one direction and the center wanted to go in a completely different direction from a capital allocation point of view.
So it's very easy to ask you, because we're not about to see Kumba going into steel making, I think. But the conversation, I think.
She says no, so
Oh,
no.
good. There's a crappy steel mill for sale that I could introduce you to. But
that was a vehement shake of the head. I'm comforted by my capital allocation decision there.
the conversation around value-adding beneficiation is going to be in the 2 days. You sit where this is not relevant in your remaining South Africa asset, I don't think. But you're a significant player in mining. I mean, how far should miners step in? So pit to port, yes, give it to us, and we would love to own the railway line and the port. But beyond that, talk to us about your views, perhaps not even Anglo, but just as an industry player. How should we do just downstream beneficiation, if at all?
This is a very, very complicated value chain, this one of mining. And you know, when I think about, you know, how to make it work as effectively as possible, this is before you even start, how do you make it as efficient as possible? It is sometimes really challenging to construct the logic of everything needs to be segregated into unitary components of the value chain, right? So now every country should have everything pit to port. I mean, it in many respects is just impossible to do, because the natural endowment doesn't allow you to do it in the first instance. And secondly, if you did try and do it, it would need to be unnaturally propped up, right? There's no natural competitive advantage in doing that. And that, you know, is a very quick route to killing the big picture value chain at the end of the day. So, you know, I feel that there has to be some form of collaboration, inter-country, intercontinental collaboration, if we're going to make mining sustainable and successful in the future. I mean, I think it's, you know, obviously, where you have a competitive advantage, drive your competitive advantage, and build your value chains out around that. Now, South Africa and Africa generally, in my view, is well endowed with what should be a competitive advantage, right? It has loads of land, it has loads of sun, it has loads of wind, has it could be the breadbasket of the world. It is now, we know it is very well endowed from a mineral point of view. It's got great access to ports on both sides. It's about in the first instance keeping the infrastructure that we've got running and operating extremely well, but expanding on that then allows you to grow the industries around it, right? You can't artificially start at the wrong end of the value chain and then expect it to be economically sound and sustainable in the future. But if you think about it holistically and strategically, you can work on it on that basis. But I think it, under all circumstances, will need some kind of collaboration. Even if that's just continental collaboration. I mean, we're in the middle of the B20 process this year, and the G20 process, which I think is sort of coming to a conclusion in a month or so's time. One of the key elements in that is, how do we open up Africa in itself? Under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The area in and of itself. The competitive advantage you could put together there is really important. But I think if you get stuck in saying it just has to all be downstream beneficiation in one place at one time, and the economics of it don't make sense ever, well, it's doomed to fail.
Sounds like madness.
Doomed to fail.
Sounds like madness. Now, our time's up. I hope I've done justice to some of the questions. I miss the old Anglo. 3-4 years ago, I would have had 6 meetings with your team. They would have told me what I'm allowed to ask you, what I'm not allowed to ask you. I would have told them to fuck off. And then we would have had a good conversation. They didn't even tell me what to ask you. So what did I not ask you? So take the 30 seconds and tell us that one thing that I should have asked you.
I want to tell you, yesterday, I was having a briefing with my team. I said, what's Bernard going to ask me? And he said, we're too scared to go and tell him or ask him what he's going to ask you. So you're on your own, mate. Just do it on your own. So there you go.
So really, take a minute and tell us, summarize Anglo, 5 years out.
Hey, listen, I think the roots of this company are incredibly deep in South Africa, and I think we are very, very proud of our history here. And we learn a lot and continue to learn a lot. We are a company that I hope will be around for another 100 years, and those roots will always remain pretty deep. And I think, as I said, if I look at the world and I look at what the world needs in terms of minerals, I think Africa is the place to be, and hopefully we'll be as big as we were in Africa in a couple of years' time. So,
ladies and gentlemen, Duncan Wanblad. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.